I want to tell you a story about a once upon a time there was a beautiful cat and his name was Sushi. One of the beautiful women in my life, my sister, once again, she brought me to Taiwan. She brought me to our beautiful beloved cat, Sushi. She found him online and she showed my wife, and the next thing you know, we were at the clinic, the veterinary clinic, picking this cute little dude up, and I remember him sitting on the dashboard of our car on our way home in Toronto, Canada, to our first place that we lived in together. He was like just this beautiful ray of sunshine. Anyway, his name was Sushi. His birthday was August 20th. He was a Maine Coon and he was fluffy. His tail was kind of like a beautiful long duster. I mean, you could literally pick him up upside down. You could, in theory, use his tail to clean things. Sushi started off his life with us in Toronto, Canada, and then we eventually moved to Vancouver, BC. And then from Vancouver, BC, he followed us to Taiwan. When we lived in Vancouver, Canada, we lived in this old 100-year-old house, and there were pigeons that lived inside the walls of the house. You could hear them. And Sushi loved kind of running around looking for them, and he would chase squirrels at the window. And every day when we came home, we'd look up and there was Sushi on the 3rd floor, looking down with his little pointy ears. And then we moved to Taiwan. My wife and I decided, or I should say Cole decided, that he wanted to move to Taiwan. And so we had to get all Sushi's documents ready and shots and things like that. And we were so stressed about having to put him in quarantine when we got here. It was pure agony waiting for him to get out of quarantine. He lived with us in Taichung and he lived with us in Kaohsiung, and he was our family. He was our first son. He was our first child, and my wife and I loved him very much. He got really sick after our first son was born because my wife had a very complicated labor with our first son, and we had to focus a lot of our attention on our son, and then we didn't pay as much attention to Sushi, and then he got very sick, and then my wife actually ended up nursing him back to health, and he made a full recovery. He had a disease that's very common to cats and quite fatal to cats actually, called fatty liver disease, which is generally when a cat gets it at the stages that he had it, will not survive. My wife's love for him, she nursed him back to health, feeding him through a tube that had to be inserted into his neck, and actually saved his life. And he came back to good health, and then we had several months with him where he was starting to be Sushi again, and things were good. On May 15th, which is the reason why I'm making this video, he passed away about 7 years ago. He had just a very horrible accident. It was a very hard time. But my wife and I got through it, and there was a very heavy grief that both of us went through, and I think I would say it took a few years for us to fully get over the grief of his loss. Maybe because the accident was so traumatic. We don't really know exactly what happened. All we know is he would open the balcony door, and we lived on the 8th floor of a building, and he would go outside frequently, and he did this often without us knowing. And I think the unfortunate thing was that it was raining, and he went out and he went across the balcony, and we don't know exactly what happened. He slipped, and we know that he fell, and he was alive when we found him. And it was a very traumatic experience. We rushed to the veterinarian, and that veterinarian looked at us and said, "There's nothing he can do. You need to take him to Tainan and go to the 24-hour veterinary clinic there, where they have the proper tools to do surgery if they needed to." So then we got in the car, rushing in the hospital with our cat dying in the back of the car. So we got to the emergency clinic, and they got him on the table, and they began looking at him and diagnosing him. And the vet said, "I'm sorry, there's nothing more that we can do." And I remember putting my hands on his face. And I looked at him right into his beautiful golden eyes. And I remember seeing the light kind of fade away. And I know it sounds very sad what I'm saying, and I feel sad while I talk about it. My wife and I, we really grieved for a lot of years about this. But over the years, I started seeing Sushi in the clouds. I would see like the shape of his body in the clouds. My tender bear, Indiana Vincent Sushi. I hope you guys have a wonderful day or evening wherever you are, and see you tomorrow.